Welcome to my channel. My name is Kim of ExshawQuilts.com, and in today's tutorial video, I wanted to show you how to hand piece your work. So in order to start, we're going to go over our supply list. So you're going to want a couple markers, a light and a dark. And you're going to also want some hand piecing thread. This is just regular machine thread. It's a Aurifil 50. This is an Aurifil 50, but you can use a 40 as well. So a 40 or 50 weight yarn. You can actually also use this to machine quilt. Not that I do that very often, but you can use it. And you can also use it for machine piecing as well. We're going to need a pair of snips, some pins, hand sewing needles. So these are just regular hand sewing sharp needles, and a stitch ripper, and you can also use some thimbles as well. So all of the information, it will be in the description with a link to my blog where I share all that information, including some of my Amazon faves that include all of the supplies in the video. All right, so let's start by talking about starching. So this is the great debate here on the internet, but I think you should do whatever feels right for you, regardless of what anybody says. So, but if you are interested in starching, I wanted to show you a kind of a variety here. So this piece here was hand pieced and starched heavily. So I sprayed this until it was wet, and then I ironed it flat before I started my hand piecing. And I do feel that starching makes beautiful cuts. Just really, really nice cuts. And it also helps, I think, kind of align your work a little bit better. This option here that we're going to go over in the video, I've lightly starched this, so it's not as stiff as this one. This one is quite stiff, and this one's kind of in the middle of the road. And then this other finished piece, I did not starch at all. And it does feel like you can tell the difference, right? Like neither one of these have been ironed after they were pieced. So just to kind of give you an idea, I find that when I do starch it heavily and I just finger press it, it's nice and beautiful and flat. Obviously, this was not starched at all. And I mean, it does a little bit, but it is a little bit, not as easy to handle, I would say. Out of all of these three pieces, I like to lightly starch my fabric for hand piecing. I like to lightly starch it or heavy starch it. Sometimes I just don't have the starch and I just go for it with the hand piecing without anything. And I do find it a little bit more difficult to sew than I would. And again, this is a personal preference, right? So keep that in mind. But I do find the heavy starch does just a really nice, clean job. So just keep that in mind. But it does, it's not as nice to hand sew. Okay, so just keep that in mind. This was lovely to hand sew, although it is a little bit wonky. So I don't find that it is as accurate. So anyway, all right, so we are going to piece these pieces together. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to draw a 1/4 inch seam on both of them. So we're going to take our markers and our ruler, and we're just going to map out where our 1/4 inch is. So it's 1/4 inch, 1/4 inch on this side. And again, our 1/4 inch seam. Oh. I'm sorry I was off the camera there for a little bit, but all right, so we are ready to pin it all together. So we have our 1/4 inch on both sides, and we're going to make sure that that's visible on both sides of our work. And line it up, put some pins in. And how many pins you use really depends on your comfort level. You might use 2 pins, you might use 50, whatever you feel, okay? So I've got my 2 pins in there and we are ready to start, and I've already loaded my needle. So this is one of the hand sewing needles out of the pack. Pick whatever one feels good in your hand. I find that this one is a little bit shorter than I would like, but we're just going to go really slow, and we're going to start. So I'm going to show you on the dark side of the work with this light colored thread, just so you can see it a little bit easier. So we're going to come up to close to the edge there, right? And we're going to make sure that our needle is on the line on the back and on the front. And we're going to pull it through, but we're going to leave a tail. So I'm going to leave a tail about that long, and I'm just going to hold it with my other finger there. And we're going to try for an 1/8 of an inch stitch length. So you don't want to go over that. The smaller your stitches are, the better your piece is going to be, right? So look at that. I mean, I've given this a really good tug just before the video, and it's beautiful, right? So you can see that on the back. That's what those stitches look like on the back of the work. Some of them are a little spaced a little bit farther apart, and that's fine. You know, just accept it. It's okay. I mean, look at how beautiful that is and how strong it is, right? Like, I really pulled on it. So, and it is holding up beautifully. So that's what you kind of want to do with your work. You kind of want to test it out, right? So we're going to hold that tail, and we're going to try to go no bigger than an 1/8 of an inch. I mean, it happens sometimes. And we're going to do 2 stitches. And then we're going to do our back stitch. Okay, so we've pulled up, and now we're going to do a back stitch into this. Okay, so we've come up right there, right? We're going to go back into the first stitch. And we're going to come up into that very, very first stitch. It can be a little bit tricky in the very edge here, but we're going to go with it. I'm a little bit off there, but that's okay. And back down. Right? So now we still have 2 stitches, but we've kind of double backed on ourselves. We can let go of the tail at the back, and now we're going to come up right here. Do you see that? We're going to come up right there, and then just carry on with our sewing. Now, what I like to do to secure my work, and this is optional. This is probably one of those like little crazy things that I do in my own little head, but I like to do a couple back stitches or even 1 back stitch in the middle of my work. For some reason in my head, it makes me think that that is like more secure, and I find that my hand pieced work never comes apart. I just think it gives it a little bit more, and you can use a threader as well. I could not find one before the video, so I'm just doing this by hand. But anyway, doing the back stitch in the middle of the work, I just find that it like makes your work so much more secure. Like, you know, like it just, I don't know. I just find that it works really well, right? So anyway, moving on. You want to try to stay on both of those lines from the back to the front of the work. It's just good practice to have it. I honestly don't need to have the line on the front and the back anymore, but when you're brand new, I find that it does really help giving you a visual aid, making sure that you're not going in at an angle or something and warping your work a little bit. So then you get a nice clean seam. You're just going to keep on stitching like that, making sure that your stitches are not too far apart. If anything, if your stitches are tighter together, or not tighter, sorry, but closer together, I mean, that's better than having them too far apart, because too far apart will definitely weaken your work, and it could mean that you you know, like you can pull your work apart and see the batting in your quilt, and you really don't want that. Not only that, but it will eventually break down and then your quilt will fall apart, and that would suck. So, but yeah, we're just going to keep on sewing like this. And once you get good, I'm kind of looking through the viewfinder in order to do this, so it makes it like really difficult. But once you get good at this, you can pick up multiple stitches at a time and just rock your needle back and forth. And it's pretty satisfying. So I don't know if I can do it in the viewfinder. This is really hard, difficult to do, but oops. Yeah, it's kind of difficult to do in the viewfinder. But anyway, you can rock your needle. Like you can rock your needle back and forth and pick up a bunch as you go, and like whip through pieces of work, right? You don't have to go this slow, but I think it's kind of beneficial to, you know, see somebody do it slowly, you know. So we're kind of in the middle of the work, and I wanted to show you how I do a back stitch in the middle of the work, and it's the same as the, you know, the first couple of stitches that you did before. So you're just going to go back into the last stitch, and I just do this once, and then now that I'm back in that other stitch there, I just come up where I would normally come up to do a stitch, and I continue on. Oops, I got wrapped around here. There we go. You don't have to do that. That is probably just a me thing. I'm not sure. But I just like my work to be really secure because it's a lot. It takes a lot of time and it takes a lot of work to do it, but it's very enjoyable. I find it so good for you. I do a lot of hand quilting, so I haven't done a lot of hand piecing in a while just because I've been writing patterns and it is faster to do machine piecing, but I really enjoy it for personal projects, like things that I like to sit and do in the evening. Hand piecing is really, really nice. But I do a lot of hand quilting, which that is like the best thing. That's what really got me hooked on quilting, was hand quilting. I have a tutorial video on that as well that you can go check out. And I'm sure you would love that as well if you're into this. So definitely go check out that video. All right, we're almost at the end of our work here, which is very exciting. And then you can see the difference between lightly starched, no starch, and then heavy starch, to give you kind of a visual idea of what those three things kind of look like. I mean, it'll feel differently, obviously, but it gives you an idea of like maybe where you want to start. It is really quaint. Oh, sometimes I forget how much I love this. Okay, we're at the very end here, and I've just popped up to do my last stitch, and we're going to start our back stitching now. Oops, I got a snake there. All right, so now that we are at that very last stitch, what we're going to do, we're going to back stitch into the last stitch that we did. You see that? I'm going to go into that stitch there. And then we're going to pop up here in the second to last stitch. Hopefully you can see that in camera. Do your best to pop up. It doesn't have to be perfect, remember. And then we're just going to follow that second to last stitch again. And then we're going to pop up to this very last stitch on the very, very edge. And if it's helpful to kind of pinch it with your nail and then pop up at the very end here. You see what I did? I'm kind of using my nails to protect my meat so I don't stab myself. And then the needle kind of glides on my nails there at the very edge. I just do that for the very edge because it's harder to keep the fabric together. And I'm going to do just one more back stitch just because. And now what I like to do is I'll show you on the back here. I'm going to pop up on the very edge again. And then I'm going to go through, oh, it didn't go through all layers. That's okay. There we go. There we go. Sorry about that. Okay. So now we're both through both layers. And now what I like to do is just go right above those stitches, just for one stitch. And again, you might have to use your nail and go right above those stitches and just do one stitch like so. And that's where we're going to end. We're just doing that to kind of like hide the, and then clip it, and we are done. So that's what it looks like finished. And there are some bits here where my stitches might have been too wide apart, but that's okay. So we're going to open it up, darks to the seam to the dark side, and open it up, give it a finger press, and there we go. Right? Isn't that nice? So this one is easier and more enjoyable when it's lightly starched compared to heavy starch or no starch. I find that no starch does get a little bit wonky sometimes, and it's a little bit harder to hold it together. It's nicer to actually put your needle through, if that makes any sense. I find that full starch is really lovely for cutting and piecing with machine, but not always with hand sewing, just because it's harder to get the needle through, but it does do a really beautiful finish. And then, but my favorite is a light starch. So a light misting of starch, and this is the starch that I use. You can make your own at home as well, but like I said, everything will be in the link in the description to my blog post that shares all the supplies. But this one is a lightly starched, and I find that this one works the best. It still does a really nice finger press. It is easier to hand sew with your needle. And yeah, this is my favorite. So I would definitely give it a try. And I'm giving it a tug to test my work. And look at that. You can barely see any of those little stitches. There's a few kind of popping out where maybe we were too far apart, but it looks beautiful, right? And that's what it looks like on the back. So yeah, I really hope you give hand piecing a try. It is such a beautiful, beautiful lost art, and I hope to bring it back. Again, thank you so much for watching this tutorial video, and I hope you subscribe to my channel. Definitely go check out my quilting patterns at exshawquilts.com. Bye now.